So let's start with the better one, which is getting money and depositing checks. So as a reminder, a deposit is when you are getting money, you're putting money into your bank account. So we're going to add that when we do our math. And before we can do a deposit, we have to fill out what's called a deposit slip. And that is sometimes either done by the business or the customer, or if you just bring cash or your checks to the bank will create this deposit slip for you. So on the left, I have two examples of deposit slips, and we're also going to practice doing another example in accounting as well. Before we fill out the deposit slip, we have to do what's called endorse or sign the back of our check. And there are three different types of endorsements. The first type is a blank endorsement. And as you'll see, this is signed by only the person who's receiving the check. So once this check is endorsed and signed by that person, if it's just a blank endorsement, anybody could pick this check up on the street and cash it. The second type of endorsement is what's called a special endorsement, and this has the signature of the person plus the words paid to the order of. So in this example, they say paid to the order of Eleanor Johnson, and then it's signed Kim Park. This check is cashable only by Eleanor Johnson. This example would be, let's say I owed money to somebody and I get my paycheck. Instead of me going to the bank, depositing my paycheck, and then withdrawing cash, I could just sign over my paycheck to the person I owed money. The last type of endorsement is the type that I would always recommend using. It is called a restrictive endorsement. It includes the signature of the person who's receiving the check and the words for deposit only. So in this case, if I lost my check somewhere, nobody can cash that. The only thing that can happen to this is it can only be deposited to my bank account. So I think this is the best type of endorsement. Just in case you lose it, you're really safe with the restrictive endorsement. So once we have endorsed or signed the back of your check using that restrictive endorsement of for deposit only, we're going to fill out the deposit slip. This is an example of a deposit slip you would see for your personal checking account or potentially a bank, and we will just walk straight through it. You'll start by doing the date, and we're going to want to have the month, the day, and the year. And then you're going to put in the check number of the check that you're depositing on this little line that says checks. After that, you'll put the amount in of the check that you're receiving, and then you'll do a subtotal. So if you had more than one check, you'd have more than one that you'd add together, and that would include your subtotal. Then you can decide if you want cash back. So if I'm going to the bank and I have $200 worth of checks to deposit, but I want to take 50 of that out in cash, that's where I would put that $50 in. So the final box would be to subtract any cash I wish to receive and put that amount there. So again, if I had $200 and I took $50 out in cash, box number 7 is the amount of money that goes into the bank. So that would be $150. If you get cash back, you do need to sign on the line that says sign here if cash received. So that seems a little confusing. So let's actually go over that in this example where we're depositing paycheck number 302 for $130.87. So I'm going to sign the back of my check, and then I'm going to put the date, and here's today's date that I'm depositing it. And then since it's a check that I'm depositing, I'm going to put the number. I'm depositing check number 302. It's for $130.87. And since this is the only check I have, my subtotal in these 4 lines is just $130.87. In this case, I don't want any cash back, so the total amount of money going into the bank is $130.87. In addition to the actual deposit slip like this that you would give the bank, in accounting, we fill out our deposit on the check stub because that check stub, remember, is the source document that we'll use when we journalize our transaction. So the good news is this information is the same information that goes on here. It just looks a little different. So in our example where we deposited paycheck 302 for $130.87, we would be writing that down on this check stub. And when we deposit, we only focus on this section that talks about the deposit of the check stub. So I'll start the same way with my date, and notice that's just the month and the day of the month on there. So 4/21. And then I'm going to write down the amount I deposited right next to it. So I deposited $130.87. I'm still going to do a subtotal. In this case, you'll see there's this line balance brought forward. That's going to be something that you record when you have been writing checks. So that will already be there. And we're going to add those two together because depositing is putting money in the bank. I'm increasing the amount I get. So my subtotal is $130.87. And that's all I would have to do to record my deposit on my check stub for my source doc. So now I just want to go over an example with cash back. So here's one where we're depositing a Christmas gift, check number 971 for $75, and we're going to get $20 cash back. So we'll start with our date. Here's today's date. We're depositing check number 971, and it is for $75. And now I would go and if I don't have any other checks, I can do my subtotal, which is just 75 because there's nothing else to add here. And now I'm saying, hey, I want $20 cash back. At this point, I'm going to do less cash received, or I'm going to subtract, and I'm going to have $55 that gets deposited into the bank. The final step, remember, is if I receive cash back, I do have to sign on that line. So you would fill this out, you'd bring it to the bank, you would get $20, $55 would go into the bank, and then you'd also want to record that on the check stub for accounting purposes. So our balance brought forward from the last check stub was $130.78. Now remember that came from this subtotal where it says balance carried forward. So we had $130.78 in the bank. And today we're also going to go and we're going to deposit $55. Remember, the deposit is only what goes in the bank, not the money you walk away with. So it's only the $55. This time when I'm doing my subtotal, I am adding those two numbers together. So the amount that would be in our bank account now that we would move to the next check stub or for the next deposit would be $185.78.